Happy Wednesday, and let's enjoy some canned wines. When we opened the store at Fermented, for those of you who may have found us on that Taste of Alpharetta Thursday, way back when, 3 years ago, we didn't have the shop open yet. We only sold canned wine. And a lot of people thought it was funny that a wine boutique would sell canned wine as their first hello to the neighborhood. But it was perfect for us because we don't take wine too seriously, and we don't care if it's in a can, if it's in a bag, if it's in a box, if it's in a bottle, glass, or plastic, a jug. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the juice that you're getting from that container. And so it really was perfect for us. It said a lot about who we are and how seriously we don't take ourselves, that we really just want to get you good wine so that you don't have to drink shit with manipulations. And that is our heart. So we're going to start this canned wine tasting real quick. I'm going to not back up, but just hit on cans for a second. Over the course of the first 3 years, there was a lot of people who question the integrity of cans. Is it going to taste like aluminum? Is it going to taste metallic? Is it going to taste cheaper because it's coming in a can? And the answer is no. The canned wine manufacturing sector of the world has come leaps and bounds since the explosion of craft beer. So we really have craft beer to thank for canned wines, because with the explosion in the popularity of craft beer, they started making cans better so that the metal and the aluminum wouldn't affect the flavor of the beer or the wine. And they do this by putting a little liner on the inside of the can so that the wine or the beer isn't actually coming in contact with the metal to influence the flavor. The first canned wine we're going to taste is actually an apple wine. So if you have the Westminster Wild Cider, pour it in your glass if you haven't started drinking it already, because as I said, it's absolutely delicious. So we have started branching out in our wine selection at Fermented to include things that are not necessarily grape wines. And two of those things are apple wines and apple cider. So we have a couple of them. We have a local one from Accent Cellars here in Georgia, and it's called an apple wine because the alcohol content is actually higher than the technical cider threshold, which I can't remember what it is, but it's right around 12%, I think. And then that apple wine is like 14%. So if it's less than 12%, you can call it a cider. If it's more than 12%, you have to call it a wine for taxation purposes. The government taxes higher on higher alcohol. So Westminster is a fantastic winery out of Maryland. We've actually picked up a lot of their cans over the last year since they just hit the state last summer. And we absolutely love everything that they've put out. They do some sparkling wines made out of grapes. They do some ciders. They do really fun, cool stuff. They've got great labels, great cans, and really delicious juice. You can see it's a younger family who owns a bunch of land all throughout Maryland. Maryland is kind of exploding in its grape production, but also they produce some really fantastic apples in Maryland, also in Georgia, and actually in a lot of places in the Southeast. And so it's perfect for apple cider, apple wine. They're 100% heirloom apples, so the type of apple matters, just like the type of grape matters in your ciders. The raw product, especially when you're making a natural wine or a natural cider, it's all about the raw goods, materials that you're starting the fermentation process with. If you don't have good apples, if you don't have good grapes, you can't make good cider, you can't make good wine. It's just the end of the day. You have to manipulate if you don't have a good natural product to make something that tastes decent that you can sell. So 100% heirloom apples, different varieties that they've chosen for this cider, grown in Carroll County and a little bit in Pennsylvania as well, in Adams County. So they're sourcing some really, really fantastic apples. They're pressed directly into oak barrels. So they're pressing all of those apples, mashing them up, getting the juice of the apples out so that the sugar content is able to be eaten by the yeast. Same thing that we do with grapes. You take the grapes, you smash them down, all the juice comes out. Obviously, there's more juice in grapes than there is in apples, but you'd be surprised at how much juice you can actually extract from an apple if you're crushing that apple versus eating that apple. So they crush them down and then they allow it to ferment the same way they do with wine. They allow the yeast that are present in the vineyard, in the orchard, in the winery, wherever they're making the cider. They allow those natural native yeasts that are alive already to start the fermentation. So the yeast come in and it's the same exact fermentation as grapes. And so it produces a wine just from apples instead of grapes. One of the reasons that we landed on the name fermentation, there's a couple reasons that we landed on the name fermentation. The first was because that was one of the things that I fell in love with early on in my winemaking journey, or wine loving, experiencing, eventually making journey, was the natural process through which fermentation was for wine. Unique to any other beverage. You can't make beer without cooking the wort or the starches that you're making beer with. There's not a natural sugar present there. Liquor has to be an alcohol that's already been made and then distilled to make liquor. So wine out of the alcoholic beverages is the only one that can be made naturally without any human intervention. If you just put a bunch of grapes in a bucket, eventually it'll turn into wine. It would be terrible, but it would eventually turn into wine. The skins would break, the juice would come out, the yeast would get involved, and they would make a wine. So that was one of the things that made me fall in love with fermentation. And the reason we chose the name fermentation was because of that, but also because there's a lot of other fermented products that we could fit into our concept if we chose to. So we're starting to explore a little bit beyond just grape wine, and we're looking at apple wine. We're looking at Amaras, which we'll get into at the very end, which is a type of wine. Chocolate is fermented. Coffee is fermented. Kombucha is fermented. Vinegar is fermented. So all of these things are fermented, and all of these things can be fit into the umbrella and into the concept that is fermented. And so we're working on expanding that slowly, finding some really cool things that fit into those other categories. And this is one of them. It's aged in 1,500-gallon American oak casks for several months. So big oak casks. And that's going to give the cider a little bit more complexity, a little bit more depth. This cider is not sweet. It is completely dry. And it has a beautiful characteristic. Like, honestly, if I was tasting this blind, I might not guess cider. It has some depth. It has some spicy characteristic to it. You definitely get that apple, but you can also get that apple flavor from certain grape wines as well. So it can be difficult when tasting blind when it's something like this. So Westminster cider, $5 a can for 12 ounces. On a hot summer day when you just finished mowing the lawn, or you come back from a bike ride and you just want something really cold and refreshing, but you don't want the calories of beer, or you don't want the kind of I don't know, beer just makes me tired quick. This is very refreshing. It's very lively. I took a can out to go play some disc golf the other day, and it was perfect. Out on the disc golf course, hot, refreshing. It's dynamite, and it actually pairs well with stuff too. So burgers, squash soup will be delicious with that spice that you get in the apple cider. That's a really, really great pairing. Pancake dinner, absolutely. What doesn't pair good with pancake dinner? My daughter's favorite birthday dinner is breakfast dinner, so she'll love that when she gets old enough. Creamy pasta dishes, yes. Quiche, yes. You got a lot of breakfast on here, Leah. Are you trying to tell us something?
I was feeling the breakfast vibe when it came to this, which is ironic because the first time I had this was with a dinner, like grilled, we were grilling, and it went very quickly, which surprised me a little bit.
Yep, it does. And it's nice because it's a little bit lower alcohol percentage too, so you can enjoy a can of it and then move into some other wines after you start, almost like a little aperitif. If you don't feel like sparkling wine, cider is a great choice.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of cinnamon in there as well.
That's so what, like, put like a little cinnamon apple compote on top of your pancakes. Shoot, come on. And then you do your cider.
Yep.
You'll be unstoppable. What a day.
Oh, yeah. The pork tacos, yes, all day long. Sweet and sour pork, yes, all day long. Yeah, it's I love it. I hope you guys do too. We'll have it in the shop as long as we can. Just a note on the Westminster stuff, if you've gotten to know it and love it, we might be going through a little bit of a drought with it because they're having trouble finding cans. And I think it's going to be a problem that we run into throughout this year, is that producers who are getting really popular with their canned wines, there's apparently a canned wine shortage right now, just like there was a gas shortage, a toilet paper shortage, shortage of wood, shortage of everything that we've experienced in the last 12 months. Now we have a can shortage. I think it's because people have been drinking beer for the last year, and now some of the wineries who are doing canned wines are having trouble sourcing canned wines. So get it while it's here. When we run out of it, we'll find something else cool to fill in the gap while it's gone. But the canned wines are awesome for summertime. The beach, the pool, the movie theaters, the concerts, the kids' baseball games. Throw a can in your purse and you're having a much better time at the Little League baseball game than anybody else. Because those things can be painful. All right, now into some canned wines. So next up, we have a producer who needs no introduction to most of you on this Zoom call. I would say everyone on this Zoom call has had or experienced some form, fashion, or something of Brock Cellars. He is exploding on the wine scene. He's becoming more and more difficult to get. His wines are becoming more and more sought after, and we're super, super happy for him. And we will always continue to support him because he was one of the first natural California producers that we discovered early on in this journey. And he's been a mainstay at Fermented ever since we opened the doors. We actually featured his Love Red on our very first Friends and Family tasting, and is one of the few OGs that are left in the store of Fermented after 3 years. As you know, we like to change wines a lot, and there's so many great wines out there that you have to be really, really good for us to carry you all the time and to always have something from you. So those brands that you see, we have a lot of, and we have multiples of, and we carry all the time. It's because we believe in them and we support them in a way beyond just they made a great wine. No, they're always there, and there's a reason for them being always there. You can trust them. They're always making great wine every vintage, even though every vintage may be just a little bit different. So here we're in Berkeley. You can see Brock Cellars here. This is Chris Brockaway walking through the vineyard, standing on the barrels, pouring wine at the tasting room. Brock Cellars was founded around 2008. Chris Brockaway grew up in the restaurant industry in the Midwest and was introduced to lots of really amazing American wines back then, coming up in the restaurant industry, and then also the European counterparts. And when he started making wine in California, he didn't like the style of the wine in California. At that time in 2008, that was right in the midst of the Cabernet boom in Napa Valley in California. Alcohol levels kept creeping up. Intensity of flavors kept increasing. Manipulation started increasing, and all of it because this guy named Robert Parker really likes highly extracted, high alcohol, intense wines, and gives 100-point ratings to wines that have high alcohol, that have very intense flavors, and that stand out in blind tastings. And those types of wines tend to stand out in blind tastings. So Chris Brockaway decided he was going to go back to what he remembered from California wine, what he knew from European wine, and that was a balance between the alcohol, the tannin, the acid, the fruit. All of those things being in balance is what makes wine really, really exciting and really delicious and really enjoyable. When one of those things gets out of balance, it really is to the detriment of the wholeness of the wine. So he started making wine in Berkeley. Berkeley, is in the middle of a city, so there's not a whole lot of vineyard land in Berkeley, but there is winemaking facilities in Berkeley. So he would go all throughout Northern California, Central Coast, sourcing different vineyards that farm either biodynamically or organically or practicing version thereof, and then set out to make his wines as naturally as possible. He does add a small amount of sulfites to his Love series and in other wines when needed, but really tries as much as possible to be completely natural with no sulfites, and there's no other manipulations or additives, fining, filtrations, any of those things. So his rosé has been super popular in the store. I think we're down to 3 bottles of it for this vintage, and we're not going to get any more. But I did stock up on cans because cans are perfect to have for the summertime. And I actually enjoy the Love series from Brock better in cans than I do in the bottle. Not that the wine tastes any different. I just enjoy the packaging and the price point better in the cans versus the bottle. I think it makes more sense for like a daily drinker. They're all great to just, have in your fridge at any time. Again, when you need something, throw it in your purse, take it to the lake, take it to the beach, take it to that concert. And then you're not fussing with bottles. You're not fussing with wine openers. You're not fussing with anything. If you have a glass, pour it in the glass. I always think wine tastes better out of a glass than a closed container. That's the same with the bottle. I'm not going to tip up the bottle and drink it straight out of the bottle because it doesn't taste as good as when it hits some air. So even if you're drinking canned wine, and it doesn't have to be a wine glass, it can be just a plastic Solo cup. Throw it in the plastic Solo cup, give it a couple swirls. Wine is always better with oxygen. And if it's coming out of the can and the small spout of the can, you're not going to be getting as much oxygen in there. So 85% Valdegui, 14 Zin, and 1 Trousseau. Other than Zinfandel, if you're not familiar with these grapes, those all look like foreign languages to you. Valdegui and Trousseau are both very popular red grapes that come from the Jura region in France, which is on the eastern border, right near Switzerland, is it? I think, yeah, right on the Swiss Alps. So very cool climate. They both drink a lot like Pinot Noir. And they're both treated a lot like Pinot Noir, and Brock actually treats his Zinfandel more like Pinot Noir than he does traditional California Zinfandel. He picks it earlier. It's a little bit lighter in color. It's a little bit lighter in style. So any of his single vineyard Zinfandels actually drink more like Pinot than many of their mainstream Zinfandel counterparts. It's from Mendocino County and Solano County. I think we have that on this map. Mendocino is going to be up here, and Solano is, I can't remember if it's here or if it's right down here. Aaliyah, do you remember where Solano is?
All right, yeah, I should have given you the North Coast specific map.
It's right here, right?
I think so. Double check.
Oh, no, it's right here. I see it. Nope, I don't. It's not on this one, but it's right here. I'm almost positive. You can tell me if I'm wrong or right in just a minute when you find it. But
I'll share a link.
What's that?
A new map that will. I'll share the updated map.
Okay, cool, love it. So Mendocino and Solano County, foot stomped and left on the skins for 12 hours. So if you get a little stinky, it's from the feet. I'm just kidding. It's not from the feet. You get stinky from the bacteria and the yeast cultures that are in there fermenting the grapes. But this is not stinky. The juice was then pressed into stainless steel tanks where all 3 varieties were fermented together for just about 18 to 21 days. It is, again, super versatile, super delicious. It's juicy fruit. We used to call this the Ninja Rosé because when it first hits your palate, you think it's going to be sweet. You smell all that sweet fruit on it. But then when it finishes very, very dry. So it almost does this ninja flip on you where you think it's going to be sweet and then it finishes dry. I love it. Strawberry, melon, a little bit of like tarragon, wild herbs, good acid, good weight, and very, very versatile. Rosé goes with just about anything. It goes with a hot sunny day. It goes with a pool. It goes with a porch. It goes with friends. And it also goes well with a lot of foods, salads, anything that's difficult, vinegary to pair is great for rosé. It'll pair well with fruits, chicken salad, grilled salmon. Yes, I would love this with some teriyaki grilled salmon, a little bit of smoke to it. Man, that would be delicious. Charcuterie and soft cheeses. This is great on a charcuterie board, especially, again, if you've got some pickled items as your accoutrements on your charcuterie board. If you've got, pickled strawberries, I just thought of would be amazing with this, with a little prosciutto wrapped around it, pickled strawberries, a little bit of mostarda, and a soft cheese. Oh, yum. All right. Love rosé. What were you going to say, Leah?
We also have the Love Red in can for people who are looking for
Yes.
the red experience. And do we have the white right now?
No, but we're trying to get some more. Yep.
And then Solana County is at the very bottom of Napa Valley to the east, more inland from the bay. And I just shared a map.
Yes. So right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Suisun Valley, Green Valley, that whole area. Yep. Thank you, ma'am, for doing that. And thank you again always for a wonderful, wonderful slide deck that is very, very informative. All right. Next up, we're going to go to red. And this is a wine that a lot of you may have had in the bottle, but maybe you didn't know we had cans of. And we're actually switching exclusively to cans of this wine. We're going to drop the bottles and replace it with something else just because we don't have enough room on our value wall. Honestly, it needs to be twice the size that it is, but it's not. So we found some other things that we want to put on there. So it's always a struggle to figure out what to take off. And since this comes in cans, it makes sense to take it off in the bottle since we don't have room for it. And it's just as delicious in the cans as the bottle. Kind of the same thing that we're going through in the process with the Brock series. We're trying to transition exclusively to cans. There's just not enough of them to go around yet, unfortunately. So we will be transitioning for this from bottles to cans. So we are in Chile for this wine. One of the top places that I want to travel to, Chile and Argentina, both. I really, really want to go see the wine countries down there. They're amazing. They're beautiful. They are rugged. They are just really, really awesome. And there's some great wine coming out of these two regions right now, some great values coming out of these two regions right now. If I were making wine right now, this is where I would be sourcing grapes from, because of the quality to value ratio that Chile and Argentina represent to domestic wines. So you can see horse-drawn harvesting, very, very old school philosophy, really old head-trained vines. So if you're new to us, those head-trained vines are the gnarly vines that stick up out of the ground, and then they just sprawl out like a giant hand. They're not on the traditional trellis system that looks so pretty that the Napa Valley vineyards are farmed on. Part of the vineyards are, you can see in this bottom left-hand picture, those are the typical trellised vineyards. And then the other three pictures here of the vines in the background are all that head-trained type of growing for the vines. And really a lot of the old world wine regions, Spain, Chile, Argentina. Well, Argentina and Chile aren't that old. Spain, Italy, especially in the really hot parts, they utilize this head-trained pruning system to decrease the yield and increase the complexity of the grapes. So they don't produce as much per vine, but they produce a more complex and a more interesting grape than the trellis counterparts. So this is Viña Matia, and they are working with some of the oldest País vines in Chile, as well as Carignan vines in Chile. And this wine is a blend of them both. 80% País, 20% Carignan. País is also known as the mission grape and is believed to be the oldest known cultivated varietal in the Americas. So Mexico, Central America, California, Texas, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay. I think even in Brazil, they all grow some sort of mission País grape, and it is believed to be the oldest cultivated grape in the Americas. And to me, it tastes kind of like a smoky version of Pinot Noir. It is light, it's thin-skinned, but it has this kind of telltale smokiness that Pinot Noir does not typically possess. Sometimes you can get smoky Pinots, but it's usually because there's either a fire nearby and it got through the skins, or part of the charring of the oak barrels when you're making the wines and aging the wines. But País almost always has that kind of telltale smokiness to it. 20% Carignan. Carignan is a Rhone grape that is often blended with Syrah and with Grenache in France and in Spain. And it's really a very important blending grape or supporting grape. You don't see it often on its own, and you don't see it often make the base of the blend of wines, but it is there a lot of times as a supporting role for blends from all over the world. 20-year-old dry farm vineyard in Chile. I'm going to come back over here, and we're going to, right here is where we are, right on the other side of the Andes. Just in between the northern Central Valley region and the South region. I love the names of the regions. South region. I'm sure they'll probably come up with a more fun one at some point, but it really gives you an indication. It's crazy how narrow Chile is and how narrow and small the wine regions are, even though it spans from the north to the south, almost like the coast of California, but much smaller in width across. Which wrong way. So I gotta finish my love real quick because I got caught talking. And
well, and Chile is kind of a fascinating country because it is so thin, it's so mountainous, it's on the western slopes of this mountain range between it and Argentina, and it right on the ocean, and it benefits from the Humboldt Current, which is I believe a northern, I think it goes north, a northern current of cold air that runs up the side of Western South America that provides an additional cooling element to this region, which is why you're seeing Pinot Noir and Pinot Noir equivalents like País do so well there, since they tend to be a little more thinner skin and they need to take their time to ripen correctly. So they have a lot of elements work, even though that's arguably could be a warm region, the elevation, the access to the ocean, and then that Humboldt Current really keep things nice and cool from a wine growing perspective. So that's really and just another thing to think about. They also have hail that they have to worry about, but one thing at a time.
There is always some natural disaster or pest to overcome in every vineyard, just like in all of our lives. There's always something to overcome, climb through, get over, and it's the same with wine. You know, it's the grapes never have it easy, so to speak.
Well, we saw that with the the wildfires in California in 2020, and then in early 2021 in France and northern Italy and those other regions, they're having to fight off deadly frost by keeping fires in the vineyard. Like, just incredible, the things that winemakers have to go through.
Yeah, it really is. And it's always a dance with Mother Nature. Some years are a little bit tougher than others. And that's what makes artisanal or craft wine so special versus the commodity wines, is because you can taste what happened that year in the vineyard. You may not know that it was the frost. You may not know that it was the fire. You may not know that it was the hail, but every vintage is going to be a little bit different based on what Mother Nature gives that piece of land that year. I love that. Thank you. The Pais is removed from cluster before fermentation. Carignan is whole cluster fermentation. So the Pais doesn't have the stems. The Carignan does have the stems. So it's just a partial whole cluster that gives more depth. It gives it a little bit more complexity. Both aged in concrete, fermented in concrete, and then aged briefly in concrete before released. Before bottled and then released. This is bottled very young. This released very young. This is the 2020 vintage. So just like all of our rosés that are coming in from 2020 vintage, this is coming in as 2020 vintage. Now a note on the different hemispheres. This was actually harvested in the spring of 2020 versus the fall of 2020, which is why you see younger wines coming from the southern hemisphere sooner than you see young wines coming from the northern hemisphere. Their seasons are switched. So you're actually picking in southern hemisphere in the spring, you're picking in the northern hemisphere in the fall. So these wines were picked in March, April 2020, whereas the ones we're going to start seeing from California, like the Brock Love Rosé, this was picked in probably August of 2020. You can drink it with a little chill. Put it in the fridge, put a little chill on it. It drinks really, really well. And if you don't want rosé and you don't want white and you don't want bubbles, but you want something refreshing, put a light red wine in the fridge for summertime, and it's a delicious treat when you come back in from outside. I think I heard Monday is going to be 95 degrees. So make sure you got some wine in your fridge on Monday, whether it's a white, a red, a rosé, or bubbles. It's time to start stocking those fridges with our wines. Lot of pairings with this one, just like Pinot. It's very versatile. Meats and seafood, nachos, potato dishes, tomato sauce pasta, pizzas, burgers, you name it. It's a really, really versatile wine, and it goes with a lot of different things. And I think it's delicious. $7 a can. Each of these cans, so we have different size cans in the tasting, as you can see. The Brock Love Rosé is a traditional 12-ounce can, which is your beer size. And then the Alpa is a little bit taller and skinnier. I know it keeps fading in and out of the green screen. The Alpa is 187 milliliters. So it's a different size. The Brock is exactly half of a bottle of wine. So half of 300 or half of 750 milliliters, which is your standard bottle size. The Brock is 375 milliliters. The Alpa by Peña is 187 milliliters. And I know those are tough for us in the metric system, or in the whatever system we use. Can't ever remember the name of it even. But it's about a glass and a half when it comes down to it. So just a little more than your traditional 6-ounce wine glass is the 187 milliliters, just so you can keep track of how much you're drinking. 4 of these equal a bottle of wine. 2 of the Brocks equal a bottle of wine. And we sell them. You can buy a 4-pack of them. You can buy 2-pack of them. And again, just throw them in the fridge, have them on hand. They're way better than beer when you're coming in from doing something that has been strenuous. At least in my opinion, they are. Not to knock on beer. Beer's great, but I honestly haven't drank much beer since we opened Fermented. I haven't drank much liquor since we opened Fermented either. It's just all wine. And I tell you, I feel better for it. I feel better than when I was drinking liquor all the time. I feel better than when I was drinking beer all the time. And especially since we're drinking natural wines, I do feel a lot better when I wake up in the morning than when I used to. All right. Straight away cocktails. So this is fun. This is a really cool project that we are just getting into. They just came to the state. They were just released. We just found them. We just discovered them, and we're really, really excited about them because it's something different. And we've been looking at branching out into Amaros and have started actually for a while. So Amaras and Vermouths are a category of fortified or infused wines. So it's a base wine, and then it's fortified or infused with different ingredients. In some Amaro recipes, Amaro just means bitter in Italian. In some Amaro recipes, they date back 500, 600, 700 years. This family recipe that's basically guarded under lock and key. It is very proprietary, and there's some really, really cool Amaros. We have a couple. We're looking on getting more. We have some vermouths. Vermouth is just a different category of the fortified infused spirit, but it's a very similar process to the Amaro. Vermouth usually isn't quite as bitter as Amaros are, and I shouldn't say that. They both have a lot of ingredients depending on the producer and depending on where they're coming from. So when you think of Amaro, just think bitter. There's not a whole lot of sweet. There is some sweet components to it, but think bitter. Straightaway Cocktails is based in Portland, and they're trying to create a canned cocktail, essentially. So you don't have to go to the bar. You don't have to go, spend $15 to have a bartender make this drink for you. So all of their cans are based on a classic cocktail. They have the Apico Spritz, which we're tasting today. Oh, real quick, I should mention, pour this over ice if you haven't already. Go take a couple seconds, go grab some ice, pour it over ice, because the colder it is, the better it is. It's fine just out of the fridge, and you can drink it just out of the fridge, but you should pour it over a little bit of ice because it is better served that way, and that's how it's intended to be served. So the Apico Spritz is a take on the Aperol Spritz. Negroni, most of you have heard of Negroni. Negroni is a very, very famous classic cocktail. Fiore, another, and Last Word, another famous cocktail. The difference in those three is they aren't usually sparkling, but here they are sparkling. The Aperol Spritz, which the Apico Spritz is a take on, is always sparkling. So it's the closest to the true cocktail itself. But they're all delicious. They're all different. We love them all. They're a lot of fun, but just remember that they're going to be bitter. So if you're not a bitter fan, don't get caught up by the really cute, fun labels. They all have that little bit of bitter on the back end. So Aperol Spritz is a classic cocktail based on Aperol and Prosecco. I love that. Man, I'm a bitter guy. I love bitter. I love black licorice. I love bitter coffee. I love bitter beer. I love bitter, charred, anything. I'm much more savory than sweet when it comes to my palate. Not necessarily my personality. I don't think I'm super savory when it comes to my personality, but my palate is savory and a little bit bitter. And this is, so Aperol is a classic bitter Amaro that has a little bit of orange peel flavor characteristic to it. So you have that orange peel, you have the bitter kind of smoky characteristic to it, which is the classic flavor profile of the Aperol. Then you add a little bit of Prosecco. It gives you a little bit of bubbling. It gives you a little bit of sweet to balance that bitter. And you get that sweet on the mid palate and then into the bitter on the back end. If you have an orange peel, put a little orange peel in this or put a little slice of orange in this. And it's a really fantastic, refreshing cocktail that you can just pour yourself and have ready to go. You don't have to buy the Aperol. You don't have to buy the Prosecco. You don't have to mix them. You don't have to do any of that. You just put a little cut of orange on the rim of a glass and then pour it in and enjoy. It looks like a perfect sunset, and it tastes like sunshine in a glass. Cheers to that. I agree. The zesty orange flavors, herbal aromas, hint of vanilla, fizzy palate, and yep, pour over ice with a slice of orange, pair with appetizers, brunch foods, or just have it on its own. It's a great starter. And in Italy, this is your classic aperitivo. Aperitivo is what you drink before you get into your meal. And when you're having your meal, you're always having wine. So you're either drinking an aperitivo or a beer before dinner, because in Italy, they generally don't drink wine if they're not eating food. So if you're just drinking something on its own, it's going to be an aperitivo, or it's going to be a beer, or it's going to be something like that in Italy. So this is one of your classic before dinner drinks, the Aperol Spritz, and I think it's absolutely delicious. If you do want to make a traditional Aperol Spritz at home, it's super easy. 1.5 ounces of Aperol, 2 ounces of Prosecco, little splash of soda, and then that sliced orange on the side as well. Cheers. If you like this, that means that you like bitter drinks and you like the rest of the straightaway line as well. If you don't like this, you probably don't like bitter drinks, and you probably won't like the rest of the straightaway line either. So fair warning, they're all awesome.
My husband really liked the Negroni as well, which is typically an Amaro and gin combination. Did encourage, of course, that it is poured over ice. But if you enjoy gin and kind of the flavors associated with that, again, dry, bitter, that is a really fun and flavorful one. And the last word is a play on the Green Fairy, if I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but I don't believe with the Green Fairy in it legally. But just really fun, really different. And then the Fiore tends to be a little more floral.
Yep. Spot on. And I think they're $7. I actually can't remember. They're the same size as the Alpa 187. So it's going to be like your typical cocktail size, but only 13% alcohol. So not as much alcohol as you would have in maybe some of your Amaros that you would get into. $7. Yep. Thanks, Alex. So $7 for the Apico, $7 for the Pais, 12 for the Brock Rosé, and $5 for the Wild Cider. And I will tell you that this is the best way to enjoy wine in downtown Alpharetta. And the reason is, you cannot walk into a restaurant anywhere in downtown Alpharetta if you want to have a drink and go walk around and get a glass of red wine the caliber of Alpa for $7. It's just not happening. You're going to pay at least 15. You're not going to get half a bottle of a rosé that tastes as delicious as the Brock Cellars for $12. You're going to pay at least $12 for one glass. Grab a can or grab a bottle as they start the concerts again, as they start the festivals again, as we get back to all the things that we used to enjoy doing, and it's coming soon and it's coming quickly. Stop by Fermented and grab a can of wine and stock them up in your fridge so you can have them to go to little Timmy's baseball game with, so that you don't pull your hair out. All right, so we are going to vote. Man, this one flew by. I thought when I looked down at my clock, it was going to be like 7:30 and I was going to have like 20 minutes to fill, but it's already 7:50 and it's been almost an hour. That was a lot of fun.
There's a lot to talk about.
It is.
And the fun thing is, one thing in my research of canned wines that I thought was really surprising, even though canned wines have been in the market since 2004-ish, it's really 2017 on where they really started to take off. Between 2017 to 2018, canned wine interest in sales were up 180%.
Wow.
And I don't know the numbers for 2019, 2020, but I imagine that is only additionally up.
Increased. Yep.
Which
that
is cool.
It is. That's a great statistic. And it is true. It took a while, but now it's like everything else that gets really popular, it takes off like a rocket. just like we've seen orange wine do, just like we've seen pet nats do, just like we've seen rosé do. We've discovered a fun new category of wine. Man, this one's tough. I love them all. Aaliyah, what's your vote?
Well, right now, it would probably be Brock Love for me. Just because that's what I'm feeling rosé right now. No offense, Stephen, you're already sweeping the category. But the double pour, it's the perfect amount rosé with it being this moderate temperature. That's what I'm feeling.
Yep. You know what?
What?
I'm going with the wild cider.
Ooh, nice.
Yep.
That's a great choice.
I love them all, and it really is like I enjoy all of these. I buy them all the time. I drink them all the time. But man, that cider every time I have it, I forget how delicious it is for an apple cider. Yeah, it's yummy. Also vegan. If those of you like the vegan or need vegan wines, actually, I would say I don't know about this straight away, but everything else is going to be vegan in here. Yep. All right. Who's the winner?
Well, I haven't seen a vote from Jerry. I don't know if he wants to cast a vote.
Okay. If you haven't voted and you want to put it in the chat function, and Aaliyah will tabulate. Alex, did we get your vote?
All right. Jerry's on the rosé train with us. I love it.
All right. Beautiful. Where are we at?
Well, I think even regardless of what Alex votes, even though Alex, your vote still matters, I do believe in this case the Team Timmy has swept the category with the Spritz.
The Spritz, awesome.
But like 7 votes.
How many votes did the Timmies get?
They claim that there are other people there with them.
Okay.
So that are also enjoying the Spritz. So
I love it.
He's cheating, y'all. He's cheating. I tried to talk him out of it, but I couldn't. He's cheating. There are only 2 of us here.
Our dog loved it.
Oh,
right.
If Vicky were here, she would vote for number 3.
Recast.
Okay, well,
retabulate the votes. Give the Timmys 3 since their dog enjoyed it too.
I was believing you. Rosé and the Spritz are tied. Lisa, thank you for being the pinnacle of honesty in this.
Love it.
In this project. All right.
Well, that surprised me, to be honest with you. There's their 3rd vote. I saw it.
Well, and Alex just cast his vote for the Spritz too. So now it's formal, 4 votes for the Spritz.
I love it. Well, I'm super happy that one was popular because I love those wines, these cans. Yeah, they are wines, wine cocktails, I think we're calling them. And they're really, really fun and delicious and different. And the Viña Matia Alpa Pipeño will have most of the summer. The Love Rosé, I think we've got 5 cases of it, so we'll have it as long as we can. The Happy Camper Wild Cider, as long as they can find cans. Hopefully we'll get all of the Westminster stuff back in stock. Currently, we do have a little Farm Fizz. We do have a little bit of Carbonic, but we are out of the Biquette and we are out of the Seeds and Skins. And then we're looking for more canned wines every day. So there will be more new, fun, exciting finds in the canned wine category at Fermented as well. And then real quick before we go, next week we have Kelly from A Cork in the Road sharing some of her favorite wines. It's going to be absolutely awesome. We love her, her podcast, her passion for wine, and she has some amazing picks. So that'll be coming up next week. we've already picked those wines, and I should have the website updated tomorrow. Forgive me for all of you who have to wait till the last minute to purchase these tastings, because I don't usually get to it till Sunday. So we've got those picked out, ready to go. After that, it's going to be Alex's favorites. Our newest team member is going to share some of his favorite wines of the moment. And then after that, I think we have a blind tasting. Is that right? Or
We're
is
going
it
to do orange wine. We're going to do an orange
Orange.
wine tasting, followed
Yep.
by blind. And then the exciting bit begins. So everybody mark your calendar in advance. June 23rd, we're going to have Sam Bilbro from Idlewild Wines. He is the winemaker. So June 23rd, winemaker tasting, which will be great. And from here, I'm just going to give you the other winemakers that we have. July 7th, we have Brienne Day of Day Wines. So if you have enjoyed the Orange Vin de Days, some of you guys got to try the Vin de Days Rouge with Caitlin's tasting and really enjoyed it. The deep blue Pinot Noir has been, I think, very popular with people.
Yep.
July 7th is Brienne Day. And then July 27th, we will have Scott Schultz of Jolie Lade. So everybody who has enjoyed Scott's beautiful wines, they had the beautiful flowers on them last vintage. And now they've got these abstract like paintings on the front of them for this vintage. So we had a tasting with Scott last year and are excited to have him back again this year. So in particular, June 23rd, July 7th, July 27th, winemaker tastings.
Love it. And then also June 13th, we will be hosting the Fermented Natural Wine Experience at Fermented. We will also be showcasing a preview of our newest expansion, which I couldn't say last week, but I am allowed to say this week. It is official. We are taking over the space next door from LB. They are moving everything to a central location in Johns Creek. And so we're going to be taking that over and turning it into the Fermented Flight Club. And the first rule of Fermented Flight Club is you must tell everyone about Fermented Flight Club. And it's going to be a tasting room, event space. If you want to do private events, if you want to come and do tastings when we don't have private events, kind of what we started to do right before COVID took us out. Now, the nice thing about it is you will have places to sit inside and try your flights, which is something that Fermented never had. So we're going to knock a couple holes in the wall. We're going to connect the spaces, and we're going to create the Fermented Flight Club where you can come enjoy flights of fermented wines 6 days a week. And then
which also means that when there's a private event, the bottle shop is able to remain open and y'all can still come in and get your bottles, even if someone else is having a private event in the other space, which we love.
Absolutely. It's something, one of the biggest regrets that we had when we opened Fermented after the first year or two was that we didn't have a private space to do events. So this will enable us to have that private space to do events, to have a little kind of hybrid wine bar, if you will. It'll be a great place to stop before you go out to dinner or right after you go out to dinner. You can still pick up your bottles from Fermented. You can try the flights at the Flight Club. And I think it's going to be a really fun space with a lot of energy and a lot of synergy with what we've been able to foster at Fermented. So just kind of a spillover of everything that we've been trying to build for the last 3 years. So thank you all for your support in getting us through the tough year last year and getting us to a place where we could chase this expansion and continue building this really, really fun, eclectic, unique experience of beautiful wines. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's the producers that make them. It's the stories. It's connecting you to them. It's getting to know you. It's you getting to know us. It's just building community around wine has always been our number one goal at Fermented. And it's awesome to see it grow and expand. So thank you all for your support. We wouldn't be here without you. We love you. We appreciate you. And we really thank you for caring about the wines that you're drinking and not just buying wine at the most convenient place or the cheapest place possible to buy wine. So from us to you, thank you, and continue to drink great wine.
Thank you,
Aaliyah,
guys.
anything to
Thank
add?
you.
Thank you, Adam. We love you, Aaliyah.
Bye, Aaliyah.
Love you guys.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
And we'll see you next Wednesday.
All
Have
right.
an awesome night. Adios, everybody.
Guten Tag, guten Abend.